Want to bring in retired Major General James Spider Marks, a CNN military analyst and now the executive dean of the University of Phoenix, and counterterrorism expert and senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Daveed Gartenstein-Ross. General, let me start with you. Color me skeptical here. Vladimir Putin, we're making a big deal of it, says, sure, he's open to cooperating with the United States. Does he really mean it?
Well, I would take that at a significant arm's length, but it is an opening. This is the first time we've really heard this. And what I think he's really saying is, look, I want to be a part of this, and if not a part of it, I'll do what I want to do, which he's already demonstrated that that's a behavior that they're willing to take on. But the key thing is, if it were to be a cooperative type of an engagement. I mean, there are a lot of details that have to take place when you're trying to deconflict airspace. We're trying to exchange target packages. We're not going to exchange intelligence. We might exchange targetable intelligence, actionable intelligence, but that's what we call tear line. We can't give them the raw stuff. But what that takes is that would take some United Nations or some other body that Russia would be able to sign up to in order to be the lead on that. Well, the problem with that is in the interim, until that gets established, what is Russia going to do relative to what the coalition is already doing? And we've already seen the challenges of that. We've got Turkey shooting down a Russian aircraft.
If you do it the way I want, the way I say, then I will let you cooperate with me the way I tell you to, Daveed. Is that essentially what Vladimir Putin is saying?
Yeah, I think that's essentially what he's saying. I mean, Putin is very clear in most everything he does that it's going to be done on his terms. He's very much known for brinksmanship. So is Erdogan, essentially, which is one reason I think that the shoot down of the Russian plane ended up happening. But Putin has made very clear that he wants things to be done his way. We can see that in the Ukraine. He's doing that again in Syria. And, it's not necessarily irrational. It doesn't necessarily make him evil. But that is the kind of cooperation that he offers, cooperation on his terms.
Now, the future of Assad, Daveed, has come up here. I mean, Putin says it's going to be up to the people of Syria. The United States says, well, at the end of this, Assad has got to go. Now we have the French foreign minister. You have the French sort of speaking in language that is getting a little bit confusing because they say there needs to be a ground force here. Whenever Russia talks about that, they mean a Syrian ground force. And now France seems to have opened the door at least a little bit to that.
Right. The question of what to be done with Assad is one of the questions that has bedeviled the coalition. That's also one of the contributing factors to this a very complex conflict, the fact that Russia and Turkey, even though they're both anti-ISIL, are also on different sides of the war with respect to Assad. The thinking with respect to Assad going is that Assad is the root cause of the conflict, and so you can't actually solve the problem of Syria and the problem of ISIL's rise without solving for Assad. But it gets very complex when you get to the question of what happens after Assad falls. A lot of people fear that the best case scenario would be like the fall of Kabul after the communist regime collapsed there, that it would descend into anarchy and that the religious minorities in the coastal areas that have been protected by Assad would then be victimized. If so, then while Assad is, I think everyone could agree, a brutal dictator, it doesn't mean that toppling him will actually solve the conflict or even make things better.
Spider, Daveed brought up an interesting comparison there when he talked about Russia and Turkey right now, talked about Erdogan and Putin. Basically, Daveed is suggesting what you have here is two schoolyard bullies used to getting their way, engaged in now a fight with each other, each unwilling to say they're sorry. How dangerous does it make it for the rest of us while that's going on?
Well, it does. It's a considerable challenge, primarily because when Erdogan does what he has done, he brings in the rest of all the NATO powers. So this is a fight that involves all of NATO. Clearly, the United States is a lead position in this. So it's a much larger concern that we have. Putin, oh, by the way, he's not an international pariah, but we do understand his behavior. He is not irrational, as Daveed indicated. This is a very rational. This is a power politics type of a leader. And Russia, historically, going back centuries, Russia benefits when there's turmoil on its near abroad. When it's on its borders and people are upside down and naked and having a big time, he benefits from this. So he has created this concern along his border, and it works exactly to his benefit. So he now sits back and says, I want to be a part of this game. I want to contribute. And we listen to this. We dialogue with him. This works exactly to his benefit.
And Daveed, Putin and Erdogan, they're not de-escalating the way you're supposed to. in a conflict like this. They're not letting the tensions ease the way that normally countries do in a situation like this. To a certain extent, they're making it worse. How do they get out of this? I mean, is some kind of a face-to-face meeting during these climate talks, is that even possible?
That's a good question. I mean, look, at the end of the day, right now, they're not in danger of coming to much more in the way of military blows. I mean, Russia has been talking about imposing its own set of sanctions on Turkey and not doing business with them. I'm not sure that they are going to back down. I'm not sure that either of them needs to back down because, look, the situation in Syria overall has been one of escalation. One of escalation on the anti-Assad side, one of escalation on the pro-Assad side, and the Russia-Turkey conflict is part and parcel of that trend towards escalation rather than de-escalation. So look, I don't know the answer, but if I'm placing my money, it's on that they don't de-escalate.
Spider, one question off this a little bit. One of the possibilities with these attackers in Paris right now, maybe they fled to Belgium. Maybe they're headed back to Syria. Spider, if any of these guys, Saeed Abdeslam, for instance, does go back to Syria, does that make him harder to spot there? Or is that the type of place where the United States and France and the coalition could carry out some successful operations?
John, he's already hard to spot. I mean, he's the most wanted man in Europe, but he could be in Damascus right now. He could be in Raqqa right now. You can drive from Syria all the way to Calais. This is not difficult. I doubt he's there. It would be very hard to find him in Syria. All that indicates is the much broader challenge we have in that you have this incredibly conventional ISIS-led power that has increased its ability to expand its influence, and at the same time it has a really precise special ops capability, if you will, enabled to do operations like we saw in Paris. That's the concern that we have moving forward, is being able to get our arms around all of that. So what is the best path forward? I would suggest at this point, the opportunity, the open door to work and try to cooperate with Russia is a good deal. And we should try to take that, not naively, from a position of strength, but we need to be able to move in that direction.
All right, General Spider Marks, Daveed Gartenstein-Ross, thanks so much for being with us, guys. Appreciate it.